The question is, in the future, in the face of globalization, will that lead to greater cooperation between nations, or will that lead to increasing barriers being erected by each nation to protect themselves because of the costs of inequality, perceived cost of inequality and disruption and so on? So that's a very important question for us all to face. I think that if people and politicians understand that the effect of trade it's a win-win, effectively, for different countries, that all countries can benefit from greater trade, then that will lead to an acceptance of the importance of not erecting lots of barriers to the ability of countries to trade with each other. What happened in the interwar period was countries did respond to the crisis by increasing tariffs and reducing trade and all the rest of it, and that made the crisis much, much worse and caused it to last longer. And so that is the fear today. So my fear is that the longer this current crisis continues, and it is a crisis, in the richer countries, output and demand is still significantly lower than it could be. That's going to lead to more populist pressure to erect trade barriers. We're lucky, I think, so far, that although there have been some incidents of tariffs going up and barriers to trade, in general, we have not repeated the same mistakes we did in the 30s. We have kept the trading system relatively open, despite a lot of populist political pressure and bad statements by politicians. They tend to talk the talk without actually doing some of the things that they've been threatening to do, thankfully. But the longer the crisis goes on, the longer unemployment stays high, the longer the output is below where it could be, the harder it's going to be to resist those populist pressures. Because people look for something to blame. I mean, in a crisis, you look for something to blame. And it's very easy to point the finger, say, at China, to say, well, look, we have these Chinese goods flooding into our marketplaces, factories closing down. It must be because of Chinese competition. So if we stop that, then we would be fine. The main problem is that within a particular country, some people may lose from trade. So, for example, in the example of China and Britain, people who are working in the clothing industry or the textiles industry or the low end of the toy producing industry may lose out because some of their jobs will go. So there needs to be ways to help those people retrain and move to other parts of the economy, and there needs to be ways to compensate them, to give them some insurance and protection from losing out. So that's why we have unemployment insurance, unemployment benefits, kind of welfare state to help them both through the transition and also compensate the people who are going to struggle to make the movement to another sector or to another part of the economy.